today I'm going to go a little off track and I want to look at language a little bit, particularly the English language, a particular form of the English language called E-prime. This form of the English language was developed and designed to help writers, speakers, politicians, etc. be clear with what they say, increase their clarity, and decrease the chance that their statements will be misconstrued or misunderstood. And I think it's a valuable thing and a tool that actors can use. Join me after the bump. Hello everybody, I am Doug Fall. And you are here because you are an actor and you want to augment your acting career with tips, tactics, and tech. If you want to go further with that and you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you can be notified of my new content when it happens. So I'm going to go a little off track today. This isn't really an acting lesson or related to acting too much, although it can be applied to acting and public speaking. I want to talk to you a little bit about language, and particularly the English language, and particularly how metaphorical it can be. I want to talk to you about E-prime. What is E-prime? You probably have never heard of E-prime, and if you have, you might not know what it's all about. Basically, it removes the verb to be and any of its forms from the English language. So that means you wouldn't say is, are, were, was, am. You wouldn't say any of the conjunctions like you're, I'm, she's, there, those kind of things. So E-prime kind of got its start with writer and semanticist Alfred Korzybski. And he wrote a book back in the 20s or 30s of the last century called Science and Sanity. And he introduced this idea of removing the isness of identity from the English language, particularly when it applies to science or anything where clarity is important. So what is the isness of identity? Isness of identity is basically when you say X is Y. For instance, John is a doctor. I am Doug. America is the greatest country. White people are privileged. Pat is a boy. Pat is a girl. Also, Korzybski wants to eliminate the isness of predication. And predication means putting an adjective to something, describing it. The cat is furry, the apple is red. You could also eliminate those from the English language under Korzybski's version of the language. Later on, writer-scientist David Borland Jr. created the language called E-prime, and he suggested that we eliminate all forms of the verb to be from the English language for clarity's sake. And I learned about E-prime in Robert Anton Wilson's book, Quantum Psychology. He wrote extensively about that in a chapter on E-prime, and he actually wrote the entire book in E-prime, using E-prime as well. I highly recommend this book. It is a great book for many, many reasons. I will say right off the bat, you don't want to use E-prime if you are writing a script or a play or poetry, but basically you would use E-prime in scientific writing, political speech, if you want to present your ideas with clarity and little room for misunderstanding. You would use it when criticizing others, negotiating a job or something like that. These cases all lend themselves well to the E-prime usage. So let's talk a little bit more about how E-prime works. A simple statement like John is a grumpy person. That says John is this grumpy person for all time and eternity, and John lives to be grumpy. It has things called spooks in it. Basically, spooks in the English language represent any time that misconceptions and confusion can come out of the statement. So when you say John is grumpy, or Pat is a boy, or America is great, anything like that, you are speaking with spooky language. In E-prime, you would say, John appears grumpy in the office. John said some things to me in a grumpy tone. What E' often forces you to do is include yourself in the statement. It seems to me, it appears to me that John does this. You describe behavior and observations, and you are showing the tool, whether it's your eyes or your ears or some instrument that you measured this statement with. So in today's political climate, somebody might say, Pat is a boy and must use the boys' bathroom. And then somebody else might say, Pat is a girl. And then Pat might say, I am neither thing and I am going to use whichever bathroom I want. But in E' you might say, Pat identifies more as a boy and therefore Pat should have the choice to use the boys' bathroom. That makes much more sense. That devilifies, demystifies, despooks that statement about Pat. And it also allows other people to say, oh, well, maybe there are other things out there than one or the other. You know what I'm saying? It's not this Aristotelian way of speaking, either or, black or white. We don't live in that kind of world, by the way. Let's take another statement. I am an actor. It means to somebody that I only act, that I am an expert at acting, that I act and have always acted and always will act. If you say Doug is an actor, that statement can't be disproven, because Doug is also a bartender, and Doug is also a VR specialist, and Doug also is a boyfriend, and Doug also is a renter. So Doug is not just an actor. But if you say, the last time I saw Doug, he acted in a show, that becomes a provable statement. That becomes an event in space-time. And that statement includes you, the observer, in the statement. So if you want to speak in E', you want to use phrases like it seems to, it appears to, it looks like, it sounds like, it smells like, it tastes like. Take another example. All men are pigs, a feminist statement that has been around for a long time. Or you could apply it to white people are privileged, or gays are less than human. It's really hard to talk about this without getting political. Please don't think that I, Doug, say these things. I merely intend to borrow these phrases from public discourse and analyze them, not agree with them or promote them in any way. Whatever your political statement is, it has that isness in it, that are in it, that basically says that all of these people are this one thing, this one label. It's a label and it causes confusion. But if you say, in my experience, many men have entitled positions, they have a background which allows them to feel comfortable treating women and other minorities with disrespect. And therefore, I don't like those guys. Now that's a very long way of saying it. Or you could say, I think this guy is a pig. But you're still saying is. I think this guy acts like a pig. Do you get do you get the point here? It helps in science and clarity, because let's talk about quantum physics. In quantum physics, for a long time, scientists would measure photons by throwing them through little slits of metal and having them land on photographic paper. And sometimes in a certain experiment, they would show up as particles. So scientists said, the photon is a particle. And sometimes they would see wave patterns and they would say the photon is a wave. And there was a big argument for many years in quantum, in physics, about whether the photon is a particle or a wave. And there's still some debate out there. Well, how can we rectify this seemingly impossible conundrum? By saying, a photon registers as a particle when I test it under these conditions. A photon registers as a wave when I test it under these conditions. You can prove those statements. You have now said what you have observed, you have now said what tests you use to get to that point, and you have made a statement that cannot be refuted easily and cannot be misunderstood easily. Many political and historic figures, religious figures, use the hypnosis of the to be in the language. Hitler said Jews are less than human. Trump says Hillary is a criminal. Christian leaders might say, this bread is the body of Jesus. We run around in circles because we all speak with this metaphorical language, this isness. And if we stopped doing that and started talking in E', using the principles of E' to debate or at least to understand what another person tries to say in an argument by deciphering their isness, then we will be better off for it. Hillary is a crook. If you say, I think Hillary committed a crime by sending those Benghazi emails, then you have put yourself as an observer into the statement and you have said that she has committed a crime. Instead of saying she is a criminal, as if everything that exists about her is a criminal activity and she belongs in jail. No, you say she committed this crime and I believe she should pay for that crime. E' can also help reduce statements in court cases. Was the car a brown Toyota? Yes or no? These kind of things pop up in law cases all the time, at least on television, and it forces a person to say something is something. It creates a metaphor. Instead, a person could say, I think I saw a brown Toyota from the distance and lighting conditions that I was in, that I found myself in that night. Or, I feel 90% confident that I saw a brown Toyota. Those statements have clarity and people can refute or support those statements very well. Couple other weird examples. It is raining. What is it, for one thing, but it is raining. How can you say that? That statement feels weird to say any other way. You might say, rain happens. You might say, I see rain. Again, the observer is part of the sentence and you measure it with a tool, your eyes. It looks like rain today to me. Again, you're implying the observer and the instrument using to measure the statement. You can interpret the isness of identity by replacing the verb to be with exists, and then see if the statement makes sense. Let's take the statement, lawyers are corrupt. If I say, lawyers exist to be corrupt, does that say what I meant it to say? In other words, you could say, hey, in my experience, I have never had a lawyer that didn't try to shyst me. I feel the majority of lawyers lack credibility. One guy screwed me over once and he said he was a lawyer, so I don't like lawyers. All those feel more provable, more accurate, more debatable than a statement, all lawyers are corrupt. If you say the statement, the apple is red, in E', you would say, the apple registers as red to the majority of people out there. Or you might say, the apple looks red to me under these lighting conditions on planet Earth at this time. You can't refute that statement because I have presented myself as the subjective observer of that statement. And I have given you many clarification points along the way as to why I measure that apple as red. You might say Craig is a total dick. Or you might say Craig is the best person in the world. Have you ever heard two people describe the same person in a contradictory way like that? Well, if the people would say, Craig did something really mean to me at the office, and I don't like him anymore. Or I don't trust Craig. Craig always acts grumpy around me. Craig enjoyed his vacation. Craig really helped me out in a time of need. That's the way you think about the statement, and therefore you are eliminating this sort of hypnotic language. Metaphor creeps into our language. It creeps into our contractions. It's so ingrained in our language. It is so ingrained. It's this hypnosis of to be is everywhere in our language. And so we fall into it. I'm falling into it a lot during this sentence. But throughout this video, I have tried to use the principles of E' to describe what I'm trying to talk about with clarity. Politicians, religious leaders, lawyers and judges and courtrooms, all those people depend on isness and to be to hypnotize you, the audience. Do you think Hitler could have orchestrated the death of 6 million Jews if he didn't use the statements Jews are less than, Jews should be shot? You know, those kind of statements in a public forum create this hypnosis, this mass hypnosis. Advertisers use to be in their slogans all the time. They're great! We are the #1 product. Soup is good food. If you can identify those isnesses out there that other people use, that politicians use, you will be less likely to be hypnotized. You will be less likely to fall for their machinations, their group speak, and you can then see more clearly how they have affected you personally. When we talk to ourselves, we use hypnotic language. We say, I am miserable, I am strong. All those things use the to be. If you look at the brain as a computer, the software, the language that we use can give us varying results. Crappy software will give you crappy results. So if we use language as it is, the English language as it is, we often get crappy results, confusion, misunderstandings, and anger and frustration and emotions. Whereas if we change the software, the language that we use our brains for, we can export better results because our software has changed and improved. When you think to yourself, I am not worthy, I am depressed, I am happy, I am successful, those statements have a powerful impact because they have built-in hypnosis into them. If you say, I exist as success, I exist as depression, then it sounds ridiculous. Essentially, you are saying those things to yourself. Does that make sense? Try to qualify and quantify those statements to yourself, especially if they're negative statements. Say, I feel down about the loss of this job. I feel down on my abilities right now, but I know that I can improve. I feel successful at this moment, but I know I won't always be successful. I won't always experience success. These are the ways you can train your brain to speak in E prime, to interpret things in E prime, and it will help you so much in life. Trust me, I use this all the time when I write emails to people, when I write criticisms about people or things like that. I decide when I want to have a statement that will hypnotize somebody. You are powerful, you are great, you are confident. I build up something with hypnosis and hypnotic words. Or I decide when I want to be poetic. And in drama and theater, you want to definitely use the to be's and the isness because it causes the confusion that leads to the drama. And we can't have good, meaty scripts without using regular English language. If you want to work on E prime, you want to start by writing in E prime. I find it easier to write in E prime because you can reformulate sentence structures so that they work with E prime. If you can't state something using E prime, you probably need to change the way you say the statement because you have introduced elements to the statement that lack clarity or specificity. Then once you write enough, you start to speak that way, and once you speak that way, you start to think that way, and that can help you in a lot of ways with clarity. E prime will help you out immensely. So practice it a little bit and see if it helps you. Just as an experiment, leave a comment down below in this video and tell me what you think of the video or what you think of E prime by using E prime in your writing. Hey, if you are an actor, be sure to join my Facebook group, Augmented Actor. You can see the link right over there. We'd be happy to have you. And if you like this video, you'll probably like some of these other videos over here as well. And I will see you next time. Bye.